Hello, CS112. Today I'll be going over a quick solution to Lab 4, which has to do with loops and loops with sequences. So I'm going to have a similar structure to the video, sort of show you, talk through exactly what each definition was supposed to do, and then jog through a quick solution. So first we're going to do the first part, which was def calc sum. Now, calc sum was supposed to return the sum of all the numbers from 0 to number, which was your parameter, exclusively. So, for example, if you were given 10, you would want to compute the sum of 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9, but not 10, and then return that number. So the very first thing, again, I usually do is I create a code skeleton. So I want to create some sort of a return variable to hold sum. Then next, I'm going to iterate through the range of the parameter number here. Now, every lab, they sort of went through exactly what the range function did. They went in depth in the slides about what the range function is, and that typically would give you a hint like, hey, I have to use this function on today's lab. So I'm going to iterate through the range of number. Then within my loop here, I'm going to simply, capture the sum. I'm really not coming up with good words right now, but then finally I'm going to return the total sum. Fix my punctuation so I'm nice and consistent here. I've already typed up the test cases for this guy, so this one wasn't too bad. So let's create something called result. I'm going to set that equal to 0. Then I'm going to iterate through the range of number. So for I in range of number. Now, remember, the range will generate, with the argument of an integer, will generate a sequence of numbers from 0 to that number minus 1. So you can add multiple arguments to either step by 2 or start at a different number rather than 0, but we literally need exactly what range does with one argument. That's perfect. So now for I in range number, I want to capture the sum. I'm just going to get rid of this comment because it's something kind of worthless. So I'm going to say results plus equals I, because I is going to represent the range in the number that we get. And then lastly, I'm going to return results. Now I'm going to hit Control S to save, and I'm going to run this bad boy by simply typing in, I believe I'm in the right directory, yes. By typing in Python followed by the file name, I'm going to hit enter. And I'm sure, as you guys know, this is the correct output. I'm quickly going to reference the PDF of my phone here, make sure I'm not lying to you guys. 45,786. Yes, so that is the correct output. Now, I'm not going to go super into depth on this one because it was pretty easy, and the second one is really what most people had issues with, seeing how it was similar to the first one, but building upon it. So I am going to now uncomment the stuff down here, and I'm going to comment the stuff above so we can just focus on the stuff down here. Now, this was slightly different. In this case, you're going to be given a number list, and with every single number within this list, we are going to be finding the range of the sum, similar to what we did up here, but then we need to somehow save that sum and multiply it with the sum of every other number. So to reiterate what I just said, we're going to, for instance, we'd be going through 1, we'd find the sum of the range of 1, and then multiply it with the sum of the range of 2, then the sum of the range of 3, sum of the range of 10, so on and so forth. So again, I'm going to create a code skeleton here. I personally know that I need a nested loop here because we are going to be iterating through this big guy here and then iterating through the range of every single thing within the big guy that typically is screaming nested for loop. And there was a challenge where you could even call this function within this one, and I will do that solution as well. It is more elegant in my opinion, but either way is fine. I think it's important that you understand the nested for loop structure that I'll be using here. So first, the code skeleton. I want to iterate through number list, and once I'm within number list, well, actually, sorry, the first thing I want to do is I want to create a sum and a multiple variable because I want to find the sum and then multiply it together. I hope it's spelled right. Next, I'm going to then iterate through range of each number. Now, within here, within this, this is your inner loop here. that is when I'm going to be, what did I write above? Catching the sum or something like that. But I'm going to be catching the sum in there. And then in this indentation, which is after the inner loop is done iterating before the next outer loop starts its iteration, I'm going to want to multiply the sum by mults. So, I'm going to want to keep track of every single multiple. Sorry, I want to keep track of every sum of these numbers and then multiply it by the multiple variable here. And there are a couple lines that I haven't exactly gone through yet, but we'll see those in a second. And lastly, I want to return the results. So first, let's create the variables we need. I'm going to create this sum variable. Let's call it addy. I'm going to set that equal to 0. Now, for my return value, since I'm returning the product of all the ranges of sums, I'm going to simply call that results, the result, if I can spell. And it's very important that I initialize this to 1 and not 0, because if I start multiplying all the sums by 0, it will just continuously stay at 0. So if I'm could be multiplying with a variable, initialize it to 1. If I'm adding with a variable, initialize it to 0. Same with divide and subtract. You guys know that. So now to iterate through number lists, I'm going to say for I in number list. I'm going to then iterate through the range of each number. I'm going to say for, in this case, I will be doing for j in I, in range I, because the range of each number. Now, what I just did here, I'm sure you guys know that I and j are typically just variables that are used throughout the community. Nobody knows why. It's just always been that way. And I is going to represent while you're iterating through number lists. So again, let's pretend number list is this guy right here. I is going to represent in the first iteration 1. So we want to go through the range 1. Then during the bigger loops, second execution, I will be 2. So we want to iterate through the range of 2 here, and so on and so forth. So finally, within here, we are just going to be doing exactly what we did up here in this loop, where we're adding this range of the sum. So I'm going to say addy plus equals j in this case, because j is now going to represent every number in the range of I. Once we do that, I'm going to delete catching sum again because I don't like that comment line. I'm going to multiply the sum by the multiple. And again, I'm going to be doing it in this indentation level. And I'll explain it again why in a sec, but I'm going to say results. Did I spell that right? No, I did not. Results times equals addy. So the way that this loop will rotate is it will first catch the first number. So let's say we're working with 4 or something. I just realized in this case here. 4, 4, 4, 4. So let's say we have 4. I equals 4 right now. So for j in range 4, the first number will be 0. So addy plus equals 0, addy plus equals 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once addy has gotten to whatever it is at this point, I can't do mental math, it will then check the next line to be executed before going to the next number in the list. So it'll go straight down this line here. It'll be like, all right, the next thing we got to do is multiply result by addy here. Now, lastly, we needed to return results. Now, I know some of you guys are screaming at me about a potential error we have here, so I will go ahead and capture that. So, as I described before, we'll have addy here, and it'll keep adding up, adding up, adding up, and then it will be multiplied by a result. But once we go to the next number, addy will still be what it was before. So it'll still remember what the range was, or the sum was of the first range, and it will keep that range and then continue adding to the second. So you'll have these massive numbers. So you need to sort of reinitialize addy back to 0 after you multiply it into result and store it there. So there are two places you could do this, and one place you cannot. So it has to be on the same indentation as result. You can either do it here, you can do it here, but you cannot do it right here, because then you would just never be storing it. So it's really up to your personal implementation, what you would rather do. I'm going to put it below result because why not? But I I really think it's important you understand the control here, control flow here, because I mean you're going to be tested with this type of stuff on your exams, on future projects, etc. So let's go ahead and test this bad boy. Hopefully I didn't get any errors. And I'm just going to that, and yes, we get the expected output from the PDF. Now, Before I go and show the like super fancy way of calling this method here, I want to really make sure you guys understand that you need to understand what is happening. So I'm going to go again to Python Visualizer, just a quick Google search. Nothing you have to, nothing just happened there. Go to live programming mode. This is nothing you have to download. I'm going to paste my code into there. And this will actually, if you hit first, it'll run you through exactly where the code is reading. So the green line is the line that just executed. The red line arrow is the one that's about to execute. So as you can see here, it keeps iterating through. That's a bad test case. Let's go like in the middle here. So as you can see here, right now, addy is 1 because we're within this nested for loop. It's going to keep adding. This next step, addy is 0 because we just reset it. It's going to re-enter the for loop, and addy is now adding up again. You can see all your variables changing here. You can see how it's iterating through this inner for loop, and then once it's done, it'll read these 2 lines before going to the next iteration here. Stepping through this will really help you with your code, just for practice. Now, to do the fancy solution, I can delete all of this stuff here, and I can simply, I don't even need this addition variable. Because all I need to do, if I'm calling this function above here, because it was pretty obvious that the inner loop was exactly what this is supposed to be here, I'm going to do result times equals, and then I'm going to call calcsum on I. Calcsum I will yield the sum of whatever I is, and again, I is going to represent 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's going to call it automatically on with I yielding the sum, and I'm going to be multiplying it with result. So I hit Control S there. Uh-oh, we got a small little thing, and yes, that is because I'm an idiot. I have uncommented this. I need to uncomment it first so we can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to delete these test cases just because I want to focus primarily on the test cases of list. But again, I'm going to be calling calcsum here, up arrow key, enter, and we still get the same output as we did before. If you guys are confused about this at all, just leave a comment on Piazza or down below, and I'll get back to you. But yes, it's very important that you understand the control flow of the nested loops as I had before. So like this, I think it's very important that you guys learn how to do. It's a very important thing, and also learning how to call functions within our functions, something else that really save you guys some time